Everyone, happy Friday. I'm really excited to have my friend today, Alex. Welcome to the podcast today.
Oh, thanks a lot, dude. I'm really stoked to be here. I've been looking forward to this all week. So,
Yeah, man. So Alex, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
I am a policy advocate in Sacramento, California. I'm also very involved politically. I'm on the board of local Democratic organizations in Sacramento. Blessed and have the opportunity to do statewide policy work, but also do the political side of things. I've been doing political consulting since my sophomore year of college. I started advising on assembly campaigns, Los Angeles Unified School District campaigns. Got into the world. Initially, I went to college initially to be an actor, right? And then I realized that I wasn't good looking enough or good enough. So at that point, I figured, you know what, politics isn't too different, policy isn't too different. You have your lines and you say them in front of an audience, except you're just not nearly as good looking, and nobody else is unless you're like JFK or somebody like that, right? So I figured that would be a fun transition. And both my parents, my father, a long time policy advocate for the Latino community on Latino issues, healthcare issues, immigration, and my mother, 40 plus year, I believe, service to the state of California, working for different governors, different members of the state assembly, state senate. So great models to have in my life, and great models also to show how service to something and how that service can help people in very tangible ways. I'm sure as in your military service, your service is not a concept that's foreign to you, right? It's the concept of devoting your time, your energy, your passion, your emotions to help the least of us, and to sometimes not just the least of us, but folks who need a better voice, a refined voice. So
yeah, definitely. So a few years ago, we were actually introduced to each other by a mutual friend that we have, Martin Chavez.
Yes.
Martin, you're watching. What's up, man? We're gonna have lunch afterwards with him later.
Yeah, we'll see you later.
Yeah, but it was really refreshing when we met. So I actually fell in love with politics. I basically was really, really uninformed, illiterate in politics myself up until I believe I was like 18, 19, 20 years old. That's when I really started to kind of fall in love with learning and studying. So I think it was, we met what, like maybe 4 years ago, something like that. Yeah. So it was really nice for me to meet a new friend who is very literate and very involved in politics.
Is anybody literate in politics? I don't know.
Yeah. But no, you're very involved with politics, and it was really refreshing to meet someone my age who is that involved with politics. Especially, we have each other on social media. Yeah. I love it. You're out there. You're a frontier member, especially for our community. For the Hispanic community, you're a frontier member out there. You're doing a good job. And I believe it was actually up until a few months ago where I learned, I mean, you're super humble about your parents, your family, what they've done. I just learned this about you a few months ago, that your parents were serious frontier members in helping out the community involved with politics and reform. So that was, you like you said, you have really, really great models who educated you. So definitely, man, it's really nice. When we met, not as much craziness was going on in the world as right now. So how does it feel being such a young member in politics during such a crazy time where politics has always been crazy, but I think with so many lenses out there now, with social media and news, politics is just something that it could be very divisive. It's something very, very crazy. Most things that a decade ago wouldn't be politicized. It seems that everything's politicized nowadays. Yeah. Anything from products in our kitchen,
a mask in a private facility, in a private business, is now a political statement.
Yeah.
I think it's important to distinguish between policy and politics.
Yeah.
Policy is the data, right? Policy is this statute says this, the regulations say this. Should it be a policy goal to do this, right? I like to think it's removed from the political piece.
Mm-hmm.
Politics is the reason it's a political statement to wear a mask,
Mm-hmm.
right? Politics is very much I'd say the flawed yet fun piece of all of this. There's always political ramifications to the policy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's important to distinguish when you talk about our political institutions and just the word political and policy, because they're so conflated, it's innately viewed as being one and the same. They are not. Policy is data driven. Policy is facts,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's hard. It's black letter law. It's what
Mm-hmm.
is in the statute. I think it's concerning nowadays that that seems irrelevant to so many.
Mm-hmm.
It is the political. What is the politically expedient thing? What is the politically viable option? And that is why I guess not only as a culture are we so polarized.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why nobody seems to really get things done in Washington,
Yeah.
and it's why in California, a state ruled by one party, supermajority in both
Yeah.
chambers of the state legislature by the Democratic Party. It's why it's difficult to do anything that is contrary to the party line.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that as a Democrat. I say that there is a lot of great things that are done in the state legislature. There's a lot more we could do if we had more diverse voices in our own party.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that said, I'd say, it's a great opportunity to be at the table.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here in my personal capacity, but in my professional capacity, just being at the table and hearing these conversations, I have the opportunity to work with my senior colleagues who've been doing this for a very long time. They're exceptional, both as people and professionals in their work. But to be at the table and to hear these conversations, to be in the room when these conversations occur, to consider the ramifications when you're looking at a bill and you're thinking, you're very much in the moment, the details, working
Mm-hmm.
through, who's in support, who's in opposition. But when you step back, you think about it, and what you're doing can impact the lives of millions of Californians.
Yeah.
That's very humbling. I'm sure most of my colleagues in the policy advocacy space feel that weight and feel that honor to be able to be at the table in these conversations and to push the scales one way or the other and to see how we can best help Californians.
So when did you know that for sure? So you mentioned that you wanted to be in acting first.
Yeah.
When did you kind of know that, you know what, I want to get into politics?
I'd say it was immediately the first week. It was pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
First week of an internship. So freshman year, I decided to come back to Sacramento. Decided wasn't the best word. I wanted to live in LA, but
Mm-hmm.
my mom said, "There's no way in hell, unless you have a job, am I going to pay for you to live in LA for the summer just because you want to be in LA? You're coming home and you're getting an internship. I don't care what it is, you're getting an internship." So after seeking out, I wanted to go work for a studio or do something in the entertainment space. Ultimately unsuccessful. Came back to Sacramento, and my mom put an application on my bed. It was for the state assembly.
Nice.
Applied, got an interview, and was asked, are you a Democrat or a Republican? I was like, I guess I lean Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
My dad is no party preference. My mom has at the time and throughout her career has worked predominantly, actually all for Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I lean Democrat,
yeah.
And so. I was asked, what is my preference? And I said, if you have a Democratic office, great. He said, all we have is a Republican office, but it also happens to be the Republican floor leader. So I was like, okay, you know what? Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
I had never really been influenced by the Republican platform. I'd never really been familiar. I'd always been told, just growing up in the Latino community in a mostly blue area,
Mm-hmm.
In Sacramento, Republican equals bad. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
so I was a little hesitant, but it was an opportunity to explore. So the first week I was there, not only did I have the opportunity to work for an exceptional member of the state assembly, Kurt Hagman out of Chino Hills. He's now on the board of supervisors in that area in San Bernardino County. I also had the opportunity to work with great colleagues. And the speed of a legislative session, the work that is done, fielding constituent calls, which a lot of people hate. I actually enjoy.
Hmm.
I'm talking to real Californians, and they're utilizing the levers of government to express displeasure or support of something. That's
Yeah.
fantastic to me, right? And so the first week there, it was like I was hooked.
Yeah.
I was like, I love the policy. I love doing memos. I loved doing the research in the law. The concept again that you are through your work helping the state of California, helping Californians,
Yeah.
was a very noble concept to me and something that I really gravitated to. But at the same time, there is a little bit of entertainment to it.
Hmm.
Right, that's where I said the political side is ugly sometimes, but it's fun.
Yeah.
There's always the political ramifications to consider. So I came back after that summer, and it really stuck with me. I found myself in my dorm because the session was still going. The last week of the legislative session was still going as I started school. So I would watch floor session to see where the boss's bills went.
Hmm.
The controversial bills we were working on. Are they going to die, or what's going to happen? Right?
Yeah.
It was like tune in next week kind of thing. So stayed really engaged. Still was pursuing acting on the side, but I remember I went into an audition. LMU has an exceptional film school, so they would use a lot of either theater students or students who were in the film school to do student films or senior theses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting phenomenal production value because LMU's film school is so well funded. So it's almost like a professional set, but it's also great practice for you as an actor. And so I would go into these auditions. Sometimes sometimes I'd do well, and sometimes I did a series of senior theses as well as other student films, and I was in a commercial as well as a music video for The Lonely Island. So I was doing okay, but I just knew in my heart I loved it, and I love acting. If I get a call one day and they're like, "Hey, do you want to be in a movie, or do you want to even be in a student film?" I'd say, for sure, I love it. But
I could see it.
I realized that the skill and my desire to better my skill wasn't there. I was not willing to, I think when anybody asks, do you want to do something? You're either all in or you're not.
Yeah.
And for this, I was not willing to wait tables in Burbank in order to wait for that shot. I felt that, and especially after politics, I said, you know what? This is my career. This is what I can do. Do I get the bug every now and then?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But ultimately, I was not willing to jump in all the way. And I have friends who jumped in all the way, and they're killing it.
Yeah.
Right. So I went to college before she transferred to USC. This one girl, Sienna Overman, who is a award-winning producer at this point. She's produced films with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like she's on the credits, like as executive producer. So I want to give a shout out to her because she was someone I knew very early on, was very supportive of my creative impulses, and I don't get the chance to connect with her as much now, but shout out to her because she was someone who came into LMU and later USC and is a visionary, is doing phenomenal work on the production side of things. So I guess I get my itch scratched by knowing that my friends who committed to that creative lifestyle are succeeding.
Yeah.
So
kind of getting to live through them.
Yeah, vicariously, definitely vicariously.
Yeah.
Because every time, man, I watch. I'm a huge fan of Entourage. Right?
Yeah.
So I watch Entourage, and I'm like, oh man, could I have been Vinny Chase? I'm not nearly as good looking, but you know what? Maybe I could have been like a serious actor and like done the dramatic roles.
Hey man, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, like if any producers are watching this, I can come in and table read. I'm happy to do that. But
I mean, it seems like we're starting to get, especially after Trump winning the presidency.
The lines are blurred. We had Ronald Reagan, right? And Ronald Reagan was, from what I understand, was a pretty good B-movie actor.
Yeah, so, a lot of people don't know that he was enacting.
Reverse Reagan. Politics first and then jump in.
That's what I was gonna say right now. I keep seeing on social media that we just had Kanye West. We just had Kanye West run for president for a week.
Man.
I keep hearing people encouraging Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to run for president, which I think would be cool.
Like, what PE requirements would be?
I think that'd be cool.
I'd be squatting and deadlifting and great. That'd be awesome. That'd be pretty cool.
So we're getting actors, we're getting celebrities getting into politics,
Yeah.
I don't see why we can't get politicians like yourself, or like
you know
people
your
in
lines,
politics.
you know when to look at the camera,
Yeah.
right? Like you know these tricks.
Yeah.
So it's not too far fetched.
Yeah, the line's starting to get blurred. You never know.
Yeah.
If there was ever a time in history where it was possible,
Say, give it a
this
shot,
is your
do it
time.
now.
This is your time.
Yeah, exactly. Until we put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
2021 is normal, I guess, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. So before we started recording, man, we were having a really good conversation. We actually I said, hey, hold on.
Yeah,
we gotta let's bring it back
energy
in here. Yeah, keep that energy. There were so many good things that we were discussing. We were talking about right now, especially people I feel our age. I mean, people our age right now, I guess you could say the millennials. There's a big division right now. I don't know why there is a division right now with people, with cancel culture.
Yes.
What was the other thing we mentioned? We mentioned the soundbite culture, social media culture.
By the way, I have to let you know, I have to jump in because myself as a Democrat and the deep state, George Soros, Nancy Pelosi, we all got together and I told them I'm going on the Robles review.
Oh,
right?
nice.
And they were like, you know what, I want to cancel it. George Soros was really pushing for it. But Gavin and I were talking, right? And we were like, yeah, you know what, it's a minority-owned podcast and YouTube channel.
So he said he's cool with it?
He said he'll let you slide. Just want to let you know, for all the conservatives out there, the deep state approves. They're not canceling me yet. I was going to say, watch your words.
Not yet.
You're on the watch list.
So Gavin's out there watching right now. He's watching.
Exactly. Anybody with a conservative lean,
I should probably go delete some of my posts. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, they're going through your Twitter right now, so watch out.
Hey, man, come after me. Come after me. I'm going out swinging. I'm going.
On that front, it's in joking. The cancel culture, I think, is a function of the polarity. It's also a function of this movement to look back on America's sins, and people say, you must not love America if you criticize it. I think the whole beauty of America is that I can criticize it, and I'm going to, especially considering the fact that we do not have a good history. We have a good history for certain folks. Yeah. And so that cancel culture movement is a reaction. Some would say it's an overreaction to that history. And so I think there's a lot of legitimacy to the points raised on the need to change. So the Washington Redskins, right? That's one that's in the
that's the most recent right now.
That's the most recent. I think that's a no-brainer. I personally believe that is a no-brainer, and I do not see anything wrong with asking us to not use offensive names to certain groups as trademarks, right? On the flip side, there is the overreaction piece to where you're not giving opportunities to learn sometimes. There are cases where it's like, okay, that's a really canned apology for using a racial slur, and not only using it once, but using it multiple times, making it a part of your persona. In those instances, absolutely. Cancel culture is completely justified, in my opinion, on that. There are instances where folks were not raised the right way, frankly, and who am I to judge how someone was raised necessarily? But there is right and wrong. There is bigoted versus not bigoted. Yeah. If you are immediately cancel it, it's punitive rather than rehabilitative. Yeah. And so when you have opportunities to educate, take those opportunities. There might be folks who've said some horrible things, in a moment of anger, in a moment of inebriation, who knows? Yeah. And if they're showing a real willingness to learn and to understand why their remarks are wrong, and also understand where they're coming from, because that's a key point, right? Yeah. If you're raised a certain way and you just didn't really think, if you were raised learning racial slurs, your parents use racial slurs, and so you use it as a matter of course, understanding why you believe what you believe is very critical, right? And so I think with cancel culture, again, supportive of a lot of the righteous moves made, but at the same time, there needs to be an opportunity to have a dialogue and to rehabilitate and say, you know what, we understand why you believe what you believe. It's not right. Yeah. But you know what, let's have this conversation. You writing a check to Black Lives Matter or another cause is not good enough. That is a one and done. This is not a speeding ticket. This is rehab. Yeah. And so I think that there needs to be a deeper conversation on that rather than simply canceling. I don't think that's good enough. I think just canceling is I think that's way too quick.
Yeah, definitely. I think to add on what you mentioned right now is so myself being in the military, there's a lot of military veterans or active duty military members who have many stories. I've firsthand witnessed stories. So the military, the beautiful thing about it is that it's a huge mix of people from huge cities, small towns, different ideologies, different religions, different backgrounds. And I've had the first-handed opportunity to witness in person. I've had people say, you know, in the mix of our group, the mix of individuals, I've heard individuals come out and say, hey, like, I'm gonna be honest with you. I grew up not liking people of color, but I didn't grow up with any Hispanic friends.
Exactly.
I'm you know, I witnessed that. They said I had friends who grew up in small towns, very very rural, where they were raised to not like people of a certain skin complexion, and they came out and they joked about it and said, "Hey man, like Mexicans are freaking cool."
I was wrong, dude.
Yeah, they're wrong.
When you're raised otherizing somebody, it's not tangible, it's not real until you know them as people, until you know them as brothers or sisters in arms, right? That's one thing I absolutely, I mean, coming from my grandfather was in the Army, and his brothers, my Uncle Lawrence, my grandfather's brother, won a Purple Heart in Korea. You know, and then that's just on my mom's side. There's a lot of other folks in my family that are in the service, have been in the service. That is one thing I have tremendous respect for, is the military. I also have the opportunity to advocate on behalf of veterans in my policy advocacy roles. That is a unique role of the military, bringing together people from all these. But see that type of experience, right?
Yeah.
It's once you are taught and to view the person on your left, the person on your right as a brother. It doesn't matter what they look like, especially in the military. If they're going to save your ass, and you're going to save theirs if you can. Yeah. That is a unique ability, and I'm not advocating necessarily for doing like a military style approach of definitely not. Here, but you know, that's I think that's testament to the rehabilitative component of it, right? And also understanding it's like shit. I was raised wrong. I was raised wrong. It's not, you know, it's not my fault. It's not. It's even mine. Not even. But this is generational. Yeah. It might be. You know, it's not my parents' fault. They're acting the way they were raised. Yeah. It's, you know, somewhere down the line, my great grandparents were racist, and they just perpetuated it. And it's a concept. It's lineage now. I'm gonna break the chain here. Yeah. But you can't break it again by. Yeah. You can break it by having that dialogue and educating. And I think that's where the left sometimes is a little knee-jerk. There tends to be a punitive rather than rehabilitative. So that's my take on that. You touched on polarity and social media and sound bites. This has been a long-standing trend, right? The continuing retreat to our partisan silos. And both parties it takes two to tango. Yeah. Both parties are equally guilty of this. And now our politics, if you have a D or an R next to your name, is a purity test. So on the left, if you are not supportive of, you know, unequivocally supportive of, you know, Medicare for all, you know, for abolishing ICE, for some of these other positions, you are not a true Democrat, and you shouldn't be the party's nominee. Yeah. If you're on the right, and apparently if you don't like a wall and you don't wear a mask, you're a rhino. That's not, you know, it's mind-blowing to consider the levels of polarity. And I know my friends on the left will, you know, will get angry at me for this, but the bottom line is you govern in the middle. Yeah. And this is getting back to the distinction between policy and politics. If you let politics guide your policy too much, you will not govern effectively. That's what you're seeing with with the Trump administration. They
Mhm.
can't even get the Administrative Procedures Act right. There's never been an administration that has faced so many legal challenges
Mhm.
simply because they didn't follow the process.
Yeah.
And it's not like you need some phenomenally talented attorneys to do the rulemaking. Just follow the rules.
Yeah.
It's laid out for you. There's a process. You need stakeholder. It's in the statute. It's law, right? And their inability to simply follow the rules is guided by what? Politics.
Mhm.
Their positions are not guided by data, by policy. They are guided by politics in every way, shape, or form. And on the left, some can argue the same thing on some positions, right? We were talking about Medicare for all.
Mhm.
So let's talk about that a little bit, right? So I am very supportive of making sure there is a strong public option for everybody who can't afford it, or some folks who don't have it through their employer. But you're still not addressing the supply issue of physicians, right?
Yeah.
In California, we have a predominantly Latino population.
Mhm.
However, we're not a monolith, right?
Yeah.
Not all of us speak the same type of Spanish. A lot, because you have so many different indigenous groups in Latin America. They
Mhm.
speak local dialects and indigenous dialects, and that's the same with the Asian community as well. You have
Mhm.
all, again, not monolithic by any way, shape, or form. You do not have enough physicians in California. You don't have enough physicians that are culturally competent, linguistically competent. You run into issues when you're using translators to relay sensitive health information.
Yeah.
If you expand Medicare and you eliminate the option of the employer-funded healthcare, and you make it a completely public option, you are now completely dependent on the existing supply of physicians currently. If you do not have enough physicians who are culturally linguistically competent, you are leaving these communities who were they're bad off. They're not well off now. They do
Mhm.
not. They have significant barriers to access to care. You're making it even worse because now there's only one pipeline for them to get care.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to that, nuance is something that both parties lack now.
Mhm.
You're either completely for this position or you're completely against it. And that is why I say it is best to govern from the middle. So what is government? What is democracy? It's a give and take. It is compromise.
Mhm.
It is, here is the goal. If the goal is to get people more health care, how do we ethically do that? How do we do that? And how do we do that considering the factors, cost? How do we consider all of these things? And how do we come to a solution where not everyone's going to get everything they want?
Yeah.
But you know what? We came to the table and we have a pretty robust and nuanced system. That conversation does not happen, whether in Sacramento or in DC. A lot of well-meaning people, a lot of people that really push for it. But at the end of the day, again, politics is guiding the policy. So and when it comes to you and I,
Mhm.
we're not engaged. So what you just got was a nuanced take on mine, just because I have the opportunity to be engaged, in these issues and to learn and educate, see the data up front. My father, as I said, his one of his biggest issues is healthcare access for the Latino community.
Yeah.
I'm privileged to get that type of insight on the policy piece. But when you're Joe Public and
Mhm.
you're trying to understand the issue, you hear one that says healthcare for everybody, and you hear another one that says, the rights position. I don't even know what the rights position is anymore, but it's a dumbed down version of the conversation. The nuance and the policy details are not there.
Yeah.
It's a soundbite.
Yeah.
And so now it's, you're either for it or you're against it, and you start to retreat to your camp,
Yeah.
especially when attacked on it, because you don't understand it, right?
Mhm.
So if you're arguing healthcare and you say, well, what about cost? Someone hits you with facts.
Yeah.
You're going to say, well, you know what? And who do you go to for that? You consult the sources who are with your side.
Mhm.
Now you have that battle waging, right? Now it's a polarity battle on, and you're getting information not from an objective source, but from a source that is agreeing with your standpoint.
Yeah.
And you're just going to get further entrenched the longer the debate goes, because it's not a objective policy discussion; it's a political discussion.
Yeah. So by definition, which would be an echo chamber, many people are stuck.
100% echo chamber.
Many
Yes.
people are stuck right now in echo chambers. Which, for anybody listening who doesn't know what that means, that basically just means that you are only asking questions or having conversations with people who agree with your stance already,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's called an echo chamber. You base people People want to hear what they or what their opinion already is, and that right there, I feel, is causing a stunt in our mindset and our growth, because growth comes by having conversations with people who have opposing or different views.
You step up and
Yeah,
challenge.
and
Yeah,
you challenge
exactly.
it. Yeah. So basically, that's something that I've felt, strongly about. I don't really talk about it. I don't advocate for it, but it's something that I feel that more people need to get out of. Get out of your echo chamber. Have conversations with people who might have different views than you. Try to understand their views. Everybody thinks they're right. What's the problem with everybody thinking they're right?
Opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one.
Everyone
Right?
has one.
And the fact is that as a culture, we do not encourage analytical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And let me caveat that, because analytical thinking does not mean going on QAnon and reading conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other end of the spectrum, and that stems from a distrust of authority. There's always a healthy skepticism of authority.
Mm-hmm.
Conspiracy theory is another sprinkle into this that leads. It's like it's not even a polarity thing at that point. It's just like you're off in La La Land. It's like you're having a completely different conversation from everybody else.
Yeah.
So conspiracy theories, and because you have conspiracy theories that are propagated through social media so much now, that's going to be that's continuing to be a huge issue. You have did you know Bill Gates is involved with microchips and vaccines? No, Bill Gates' foundation funds a lot of different things, and there's no interest there. Like there's a lot of different, and I'm really curious to see the comment threads on this, because I can only imagine what's going to be how that might be rebutted. But I think the conspiracy theory piece is a considerable issue as well. But at the end of the day, we're not encouraged to be analytical thinkers. A lot of folks are frankly lazy. They don't want to be analytical thinkers because it's a confirmation bias, right? When you are approaching a policy issue or any issue really, and you're looking for something to support your claim, you have confirmation bias. When you find a stat that says this, you're not going to look at the source and say, what is that, a poll of 30 people?
Yeah.
All of them from Fresno?
Yeah.
You're not going to consider the fact that is not a great source. You're going to look at the data and said, a study says 30%.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And that confirmation bias is what drives most of the dialogue. Nobody, again, it comes back to being a critical thinker and being analytical, and saying, I'm going to take a step back, removing my own bias and my own slant on this, and I'm going to look at the data. There's a poll that says this. There's also a larger poll that says complete opposite. How do I weigh it? How do I consider it? That's analytical and critical thinking that, as a culture, we're not encouraged to do. We're encouraged to get our news through CNN. We're encouraged to get our news through Fox News or OAN or whatever.
Yeah.
And the whole point of that news is not news. It's entertainment. It's how can I propagate that position? How can I cherry pick statistics?
Yes.
And so to the folks out there who are asking, how can I get engaged? Read policy papers. Are they boring? Yes. Read legal briefs. Are they very boring? Yes. But you're going to get the facts in it. You're going to get a straight level summary. I like to explain kind of how the legislative process works. Every bill, and so this is, I'll give you a real world example. There are, these social media posts, or you have these advocate groups saying the legislature wants to take your guns, or the legislature wants to do X, Y, and Z. Go to CalLeg info. It's cal.leg.info. Google the bill number, or search the bill number. Go to analyses. These bill analyses are written by consultants. Their whole life is this legal code section or this issue. The summary is objective. The summary is, this bill does this.
Yeah.
It does not do this. It does not do that. That is direct from the horse's mouth, as they say. That is as technical and detailed and honest a summary as you're going to get from the source. If you are reading Breitbart and it says the bill does this, fact check that.
Yeah.
Read the analysis.
Nobody fact checks nowadays.
Nobody fact checks, because just because it may change a definition or something like that, they'll say, "Oh, the bill does this." It might not even. It might be intent language, which is intent, but it doesn't have any operative ability to change the law, right? So double check when you're told that the bill does this or this. Double check it. I mean, it's a little bit extra work, but CalLeg info is probably is a great source to start with. Again, every author has biases, right? And so there will be some bias to a degree, in the sense that they may say the bill is going to be more impactful in one way or the other. Humans are flawed. They're going to write with a little bit of an agenda to a degree.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, if you are getting the black letter law, you're learning to read how the bill changes the code section or it changes the existing statute, it amends shall to may, or whatever the case may be, you can cross-check that with, well, okay, if it says it's going to bring in revenue, what does Department of Finance say? And, can we look at tax receipts? Going down the rabbit hole, that type of research is what we as policy advocates do regularly. And if more folks did that, I think you'd see less polarity, because you're having a more informed public that is less likely to cherry pick statistics. They're going to think more critically, analytically, but they're also more willing to play devil's advocate sometimes.
Yeah.
Again, you said growth, right? So I love the concept of growth, because we're always growing as human beings, as individuals. So our politics needs to grow with it. We need to understand that a policy position may be wrong some point down the line. We may need to amend the law, because you know what? At the time when we passed this, this was the rationale. The consumer behavior has changed. The law doesn't fit the current dynamics. If we do that for our policy, we need to do that as people as well. Our political positions change. They change with our personal lives, and they change with our situations. There is an unwillingness now to consider that I may be wrong. Yeah. So everything I said, I am willing and I am really eager to hear. And I don't say that contemptuously. I say that because I'm really honest to God, interested in hearing pushback.
Yes.
So if there is no pushback, you're not going to grow. And that's really how we need to approach it as a culture now is, I'm willing to consider the fact I may be wrong, and it takes big people to admit that, and it also takes emotionally mature and critical thinkers to think that way. And so if our culture was so to the young people, to the folks who are engaged, be willing to accept the fact that you may be wrong. If you do not want to be wrong, consider all of the evidence. That is probably the biggest piece of this, is that you need to look at the opposition. You need to look at what points are being made by the people who disagree with you. And if you cannot rebut them, don't propagate that point. If you are not willing to use data and facts to support your position, you are wrong. And if you're not willing to have a conversation in which you hear the opposition out, at least, and have a civil conversation, you are part of the problem. You are pushing them further to the right, because they're going to get frustrated that you don't want to have the conversation. They're going to retreat back into their foxhole. You're in your foxhole. Yes. And now we're at this standstill that is American politics.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Just before we started recording, another really good conversation we were having was the polarization of today's political spectrum. I've looked into studies where people used to identify themselves a few decades ago, going by decade, and at this point in society, it is the least amount of people are identifying themselves in the center right or center left. It is the lowest amount of people ever identifying in the middle, and that's a problem. That is a problem right now, because that, I feel, is where, as a country, where we find the most harmony, when people are center right, center left. But more and more people now are starting, as you mentioned, retreat towards the fringe of wherever they identify themselves.
And that's where you get into the conspiracy theories, right? Because they're so disenfranchised by the two parties that they reach for their confirmation bias. And just on that point briefly, that data, I remember reading something similar. That data was just of people who identify as a member of one party or the other. If you look at the voter trends, registration trends here in California, as of last year, at some point, I believe early last year, no party preferences. There's been a 20 to 30%. I believe I might be cherry picking that, but there's been a significant rise in people leaving both parties.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they're done with the polarity and they're done with the purity tests on your political stances.
Yes.
And I have to say this as a Democrat. we have to do better. We cannot be the alternative just because Republicans are so bad.
Mm-hmm.
We can argue why Republicans are bad. That's a whole other discussion. But as Democrats, for so long, especially when it comes to Latino outreach, Democrats have said, vote for us, we're not them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good enough.
Yeah.
Our community, there's a lot of great Latino Democratic leaders, but the bottom line is we need substance.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of Latinos. There's a recent poll done a couple weeks ago that showed Trump polling at like 20 to 25% support amongst Latinos.
Yeah.
Why is that? Well, as a culture, I'd argue we're generally more conservative. We lean conservative.
Mm-hmm.
We're entrepreneurial. We're evangelical Catholics. We're very religious. There is a component of our culture that is kind of keyed into conservative messaging. And Democrats, unfortunately, don't take the time, unless it is their job to be paid to win in the Central Valley, win flip red seats. The Latino outreach by the party is lacking because of the purity test.
Yeah.
And I say this candidly, and again, apologies to my progressive friends, but when a white liberal is telling Latinos what they should think, that is where I have a problem, because you don't know our communities. You're just telling us what the party line is on that. That's not good enough. As Democrats, we need to be better about doing outreach to rural communities. We do not do good in rural. We do not do well in rural communities, because when there are candidates who they're not perfect ideology wise, we throw them out like an Amy Klobuchar. She doesn't have a great record on some issues from the progressive standpoint. We cannot throw her under the bus just because she's not politically perfect on that. We need to understand that she represents her constituency. We need to be open to accepting that and working with them, because I guarantee you, in Congress, if they have a D on at the end of their name, they're going to be a hell of a lot better than someone with an R from the Democratic standpoint. The same goes for Republicans. The Republicans are now the party of Trump, right? They are a populist party, and I know I'm going to face pushback on that. They are populist. They are innately populist. They're no longer conservatives. Budget deficit? What budget deficit? Conservatives are, for years argued about against the Obama administration about deficits, and now all of a sudden we don't care. So the conservatives are also guilty of this, because if you're not for build a wall, mega, and everything else, then you're not a Republican. There are so many great Republicans out there that are now completely left in limbo. The Lincoln Project, right? So that they have that group of ex-Republican consultants that are running, to do outreach to those folks who have been left behind by the Republican Party. So it's both sides. Both sides have abandoned the center. They are now purity test political parties, and that is why our discourse is not civil. That is why our discourse is not constructive. We spin our wheels all day, but nobody's coming forth and saying what needs to be done from a policy perspective. Again, policy, politics. So that's my spiel on that.
Definitely.
As a Democrat, I like to think that I can play a role as a local Democrat in Sacramento County of helping identify where we can make better inroads into our communities, the Latino community, and to help push back. I mean, I understand, especially in the military, right? There are so many Latinos that are like, you know what? Trump sounds like a strong guy. I like him. I like him because he just says whatever the hell he thinks. And again, wrong I may think that might be, I get it. I get why you're thinking that way. And if the Democrats are embracing far left positions on some issues, far left, I say that quote unquote, if they are embracing those policy positions unequivocally and saying, if you're not with us, you're against us, where is your incentive to pull Latinos who are Trump supporting? Where is your incentive to pull Latinos who are living in a reality where gas is more expensive for them? The day-to-day groceries they need to get by are more expensive for them. Or they're driving Lyft and Uber, and now they have to be considered, employees or something like that, right? I'm all for a union here. Huge union supporter, but maybe we need to revisit how we classify workers, right? Especially in the gig economy. There's a lot to be desired from the Democratic Party nationally and in California to really get to the nitty-gritty of the issues that isn't a partisan approach. If we all sat down, I guarantee you sat down a group of Latinos in some of these communities. And there is the urban and rural divide, even in our own
Yep.
community, right?
Yeah.
Because you have Latinos in LA that are like, I don't give a shit about farm workers,
Mhm.
because they don't understand
they
that
don't know.
what is
Mhm.
picked is on their tables,
Yeah.
right? Why do I care about water, right? Because
Mhm.
again, they don't understand that reality. If you put a group of Latinos in the urban areas and in the rural areas together, they're very different.
Yeah.
And the Democratic Party fails to make that distinction in their outreach oftentimes, and also fails to do policies that would broadly impact those communities specifically in a meaningful way, not a political way. Again, right? Like, so SB 54, we talked about 54. Sanctuario, right? The fact that you as an undocumented should feel safe, it does nothing to prevent ICE from rolling in. Does it make you feel good that my city is a sanctuary city, invisible wall?
Mhm.
Does nothing. ICE is still going to roll up, and they're still raiding churches, and they're doing everything they can under this administration with its ramped up deportation orders. 54 did nothing. It all just prevents your local PD from reaching out to ICE directly. But you don't think ICE has that data already? You're very wrong. So again, my advice, and who am I, a 26-year-old engaged in politics? Who the hell is this guy offering unsolicited advice? I get it, but my opinion and what I really hope to work towards within the Democratic Party as a Democrat, and is to do substance over style. We have had way too much. We have a reality TV show president. We have, so Kanye was going to run for president. We have way too much style, way too much flash. What it takes is someone ready to roll up their sleeves and get both sides of the issue and do the tough work on the policy. That's what we need. We need more statesmen, not politicians.
Yes, I agree. Now, we're running out of time here, but just to end things on a positive note, if you could summarize, or if you could kind of give a little statement to young people our age who want to get more involved with politics, or just something that could help heal the polarization that we have, what would be something that you would say?
Educate. The more you learn, the more open you are to hearing to different viewpoints. And educate from a variety of sources. Educate yourself from a variety of sources. Access different news channels. I watch Fox News.
Mhm.
I watch it because I understand the rhetoric, and I understand. Sun Tzu talks about knowing your opponent, knowing your enemy in the art of war. Right.
Yeah.
I hate to say politics and relate politics to the art of war, and relate our civil discourse to this, but the fact of the matter is, our discourse is war right now.
Mhm.
It is so politicized. It is so polarized that it is almost a state of warfare in how we engage with each other. But the way we can diffuse that is by understanding where they're coming from. Listen to them.
Yeah.
As anybody involved in politics, listen to someone you don't agree with. They may be wrong, and it may frustrate you, may kill you. You may want to post something snarky on Facebook. Believe me, I'm guilty of this often, being snarky. But the more you talk down to someone who may not agree with you, they might not know they're wrong. They may not know why they're wrong, and they may feel that they are 100% justified. The more you talk down, you're pushing them further
away. Yep.
So civility. I encourage civility first and foremost, but education is the tool here. Understanding where you're getting your news, understanding where you're learning what you believe.
Yes.
That is the key. And that doesn't mean go down the rabbit holes of conspiracy theory. I got to hit on that again, because conspiracy theory is not education. And yes, I'm a sheep, call me it. But conspiracy theory is not the path here. The path here is reading medical journals, right? On COVID. It's reading policy white papers. Are they boring? Yes. Do you want to have a more engaged public and electorate? You need to do it. You need to devote your time. Read periodicals. Read everything and anything, because that is how you grow. That's true self-education.
Yes, I agree. I personally feel that nobody should be married to their ideology. If you are not, if this goes out to anybody, this is kind of like a standard that I live by, and I feel like it might help others. But if you are not comfortable enough to have a conversation with somebody who goes against what you believe, if that makes you angry, upset, uncomfortable, you don't understand what you believe enough. because once you fully understand something, it goes back to this saying, this really popular saying that uh, somebody who knows, uh, you don't really know something until you're able to teach it.
Yes.
If you don't really know something, if you're not able to teach it, so if you're not able to, I feel like that goes hand in hand with the other statement I made. If you're not able to have a discussion about what you believe in with someone who opposes it, then you don't really have a clear understanding yet.
Maturity.
Definitely.
Maturity is a key piece of this. And as a culture, we're an immature culture.
Yeah, we are.
We're a knee-jerk reactionary culture on both sides.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem, right? We lack the maturity to have those discourses and to have these conversations about things that may make us feel uncomfortable, things that we don't agree with. But what I like to say, and we can end on this, is that unless you are questioning someone's human value or their worth, for instance, on the LGBTQ issue, I have a lot of brothers and sisters, metaphorically, that are LGBTQ, and if you're questioning their existence or their civil rights, that is where I draw a line.
Yeah.
And that is where gloves are off. But if you are,
which, by the way, you are a boxer. So
So
when he says
like
gloves off,
so when I say gloves off, I do mean gloves off.
Watch out, be careful.
When you're talking about whether or not Black Lives Matter, on those issues, I draw a line and I say, we're not having a policy debate here. We're having a moral debate, and that's a whole other conversation.
Something else, yeah.
But when it comes to policy-wise, how can we address systemic inequality? If it is an honest-to-God debate on this, and we are talking about facts and figures, and we are accepting our country's history, an ugly history, I'm all for that conversation. You can disagree. You may say, there are folks that may say, repayments to the descendants of African Americans, the slaves. You may say abolishing the police force is a terrible idea. But you know what? If you're coming at it from an honest perspective to have a policy discourse, I will have that conversation every day, 10 times out of 10. But if you are saying Black Lives matter because Black lives don't matter because they don't matter, again, that's where the gloves come off. That is where that's
not even political.
You're not.
It's not politics.
It is not a good faith discussion.
Yeah.
If you are not willing to have that good faith discussion, there's no point in having the discussion. And unfortunately, as we said, folks aren't willing to have that good faith discussion. I have so many conservative friends, that I actually had a call with a good kid I went to high school with, and he said, I don't understand it. On the police brutality issue, statistically, more blacks kill blacks or kill whites than whites kill blacks. We talked about confirmation bias. We talked about taking statistics at face value and why that's a problem specifically on that issue, right? It's a proportions game. And it's also when you consider, the concept of police brutality, that African Americans are statistically disproportionately targeted significantly. Same with Latinos, but that's a conversation that is siloed. And he says, Alex, and believe me, this was a grueling conversation. I wanted to rip my hair out at pieces because he kept pushing back on some things that I was just like, that's just not how it works, right? But at the end of the day, he goes, you know what? Thank you, because instead of just calling me a racist or dumb or I don't get it because I didn't go to college or whatever the case may be, he goes, you took the time to explain it to me, and he goes, honestly, like we disagree on things still to a degree, but I get it. I get more of it now. Yeah. That is the type of experience that made me realize, and believe me, I'm not above snarky comments on Facebook, but that is where I know I'm going down the right path. And so to all the folks out there who want to get engaged, it's patience, civility, having a good faith discussion. Yeah. Alex, it was a pleasure having you on. Anybody who wants to follow you, either on social media to see kind of what you're working on, what are some ways they can reach you? Alex_T54 is my Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, same Twitter account, Alex Torres, Sacramento, California. Please reach out if there's anything. I think one of the big things if we talk about folks getting engaged, if you want to get involved in policy, you want to learn how you can engage politically, reach out, because as minorities specifically,
Mm-hmm.
there are not enough. We are in California, a predominant Latino state. There aren't enough of us at the highest levels of this stuff. The least we can do. I'm in. By no means am I in any sort of hierarchy. I'm low man on the totem pole in my role, but I love it. And if I can help anybody get to where they want to be or get into this world, please reach out, because we do need more of our community engaged.
Yeah.
And we do need everyone needs a helping hand. I got my shot in my world because somebody said yes to me. So if I can say yes to 20 more people, I think I've got a shot. So anything I can do to help, please reach out.
Awesome. Also, too, if you want to see Alex really beat up a punching bag, that's if you want to see that, also Adam, follow him too. But man, obviously politics is something that, gosh, it's not a conversation that can be captured in within an hour, which is what we have. It just can't.
Has it been an hour? It feels like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I wish that we can go on and on, but as you said, this is something that takes conversations, long conversations.
Difficult conversations.
So anybody who wants to reach out to you, please follow him, reach out to him. Stop being so divisive. Talk to people who you disagree with. Be kind to your neighbor,
and be kind to your neighbor. And I just before we end here, I would be remiss to not acknowledge your work. So this is a self-made man here, folks. This is a guy who's just a perfect example of Latino excellence in business. He's a self-starter. He's a grinder. And he's someone who I think a lot of folks in our community can look up to, and provides critical services, helping get folks educated on financial literacy, home ownership. And he's also, he's also a Marine. So I mean, you read about these guys who's like a Harvard PhD, Navy SEAL, and is now a doctor helping fight COVID. Angel is one of our Latino equivalents to
Thanks,
this,
brother.
Because what he does for our community is if more folks were like that, I think we'd have an honest shot at having these whole conversations on minority-owned businesses. I think they're Latino-owned businesses have such a role model in what you do and the services you provide. So thank you for having me.
Brother.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate that. Well, everybody, thank you for watching. We're gonna go grab lunch right now. Let's go grab some lunch.
Grab a beer.
Everybody have a good week. Until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.